Cliff Notes or cheat sheet. So what this is providing you guys is just the parameters of what it is. So if you ever want to know, okay, eligibility, what are the services that can be provided? Here's a list of all the different types of services that can be provided in a youth program. Eligibility for out-of-school youth and in-school youth, and you guys should probably be pretty aware of this. But like I said, this is a really quick 2-pager reference. So if you ever, kind of forget, oh yeah, what do I need for eligibility? It's going to be here for both your out-of-school and in-school youth. It also provides, what our priorities are. Now, Illinois did get a waiver. So you see here I've included Illinois has a waiver that allows 50% for out-of-school youth and 50% for in-school youth. Nationally in the legislation, it was a 75% for out-of-school youth, but we did get a waiver for that. So this is where this comes from when we're looking at in-school and out-of-school youth. And when we talked about the work experience, this is the requirement right here. No less than 20% of youth funds allocated to local areas need to be expended in work experience. And there's a lot of different, ways of charging that in work-based learning and work experience, but this is something that is required by the federal law. So if you're having problems with meeting that, then we need to know, sooner than later if that's an issue for you, because we have to figure out, we have to address that. It talks about co-enrollment, and then it shows you the allocations for the last, from 17, 18, and 19 nationally. And then it also shows us, the number of served that were in PY17. So if you take that by the allocation, the average cost was right around $5,882. So I'm sure you guys remember when we were establishing these grants, we talked a lot about average costs and how where's your average cost is at. So I just wanted to show you this, that, if we look nationally, those that are served in the program is around a $5,882 average cost per. So that is a consideration whenever we do look at new projects and everything, is their average cost, and we take into consideration the services and the magnitude of the services too, because in some cases, it costs more. So that's just a fact of the service being provided. But I just want to let you know that this is, there is a reason that we look at the average cost. And then once again, it provides your performance matrices here. So the last one you guys don't worry about, that's a system matrix, but it indicates your employment or in a training program second and fourth quarter. The median earnings in the second quarter exit, the credentials attained, and then measurable skill gains. For any grantees that were with us last year, measurable skill gains in the last round was kind of a new thing, and we may not have included as many measurable skill gains reported in that grant. But it's required for this one, so you need to make sure that you're documenting measurable skill gains annually. So measurable skill gains has to be attained, one measurable skill gain a year. So make sure, if they're, a report card, if they completed a semester, successfully, could be a measurable skill gain. And if there's any questions on the measurable skill gains, we've got the information on that too, and we'll load that up in the partner resources if it's not there. Do we have any questions on any of that? Okay, and this is a resource I'm sending out, and this is also going to be in the partner resource section on WorkNet.
Yeah, it's already, they're posted. The 3 documents or 3 resources you were going to show are posted with the archive training, and then they're also available on the full list of resources.
Okay, well, we're going to move on. So some of the things that we want to discuss is, part of the intention of these grants is looking at innovation and new processes and new procedures. And we want to start bringing to you some things that we come across, and we also want you guys to start sharing stuff that you guys are coming across in the field. So I have 2 things that I need for you guys to do. The one thing you have to do today before you exit this webinar is in the chat box. I want you to type some sort of a topic that you would like to have more content in, like a content expert to come and talk about. So one of them we're working on is dropout prevention. So I need all of you guys to provide at least one, to provide one topic that you think would help you if you had more content on. You don't have to do it right now because some of this other stuff that I'm going to show you may give you some ideas as far as, yeah, that would be something that I would be interested in. And then the other thing that I want you guys to do for next week is I want you to provide a resource. So whether it's something you've read in a newspaper, whether it's a website that you've gone to, or it's an article that you've read, or it's a book that you've read that relates to what we're doing, what do you feel like is beneficial for this group as far as content to help us, moving on in these particular projects? And one of the things that I'm going to show you, I'm going to go to the Youth Connections document, but after that I'm going to show you a report and a website that is got some interesting components as far as career pathways and what we need to do moving forward. So just think about that. And like I said, before you leave, we want participation. So we want to make sure that you guys are telling us what you need as far as content. And then next week, we want you to bring resources of what you think is good resources that we can share with the group. Okay, so the next topic we're going to go through, and like I said, once again, I'm going to provide all of these in the email, and then Natasha has these all in the partner resources. If you're not familiar with this, you can subscribe. It's called Youth Connections, and the Employment and Training Administration, the Department of Labor, publishes this. And this is an actual document. It's a case management toolkit that they put together. But if you go to the Youth Connections, they have an email or a newsletter that you can get. And the newsletter is really beneficial because it'll give you specific, topics, related to different types of things. Like there's one of the last topics was working with reentry youth. So they provide that, and then they also will provide, funding opportunities. So, every now and then there's Department of Labor puts out some funding opportunities. So that's also listed in this Youth Connection newsletter. So if you're not getting it, I recommend that you can Google this, the Youth Connections, Department of Labor Youth Connections, and get on their mailing list because it is a good resource. But what they put together with this is it's a case management tool, and it's got some really, really good content in it, and it flows with what you guys are doing now. It just kind of lays it out really nice as far as doing recruitment, intake, and enrollment. Is it necessary? How do you recruit in school and out of school youth? Talking about assessments and the individual service strategy. And now remember that ISS is the individual plan, or their career plan, and that's what we have in the WorkNet system. So it should be constantly changing and constantly used because things change as they progress. So two things that I would like for you guys to kind of consider or look at with this project is in IWDS, the ISS. In many cases, that usually is a stagnant date. People put the ISS in as a beginning date, end date, and that end date never changes. Well, for real case management, the ISS should be changing. In IWDS, you have to add an episode, but anytime you're making adjustments to their career plan, you should be documenting that in IWDS and adding an episode and identifying. You just identified a change was made to their career plan, based upon career goals or whatever that change is. But the actual career plan resides in the WorkNet system. So you need to be looking at that and updating it, when it's appropriate to do that. And then it goes through additional things as far as, meeting the labor market needs, implementing, case management and individual service strategy. And then we've had a lot of questions around follow-up. So it talks about the follow-up. And this particular follow-up is follow-up on your the services, but then we also talk about, I take that back. That is the follow-up after they leave. So work-related questions, that you can ask and follow up. Academic questions you can ask and follow up. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. And then here's some resources that you can go to also. But we'll just kind of breeze through it, and I'll show some areas of this. And this is, step by step based upon what the tool is. It talks about your recruitment and intake and enrollment, and this is pretty significant for some of you guys because if you're not, close to your plan number or your projected number that's in your scope of work, then you need to really focus on this recruiting efforts. It talks about, recruiting out of school youth, options and different techniques of recruiting. It talks about, an example, say faith-based organizations, different, ways of recruiting. It talks about in-school youth and recruiting in-school youth. It talks about the intake and enrollment process. So all of this is specifically related to requirements also in the WIOA system. So it kind of explains that whole intake and enrollment process with that also. And then Chapter 2 talks about assessments and developing the ISS strategies. So with an assessment, we have to do a tape test. And so that's considered to be one assessment, but that shouldn't be the only assessment. You should be assessing all along the way when you're working with these individuals. So an assessment really is part of the individual service strategy because you should be continuously assessing. But it goes through different components, of assessing and the principles behind assessing. Like I said, once again, this is a good resource to kind of read through and see if your program aligns with the recommendations that are input into this. Talks about employability, assessing employability and what the support services are and what the career goals are, roles of the case manager. And then it provides you some information on assessment tools also. And in Illinois WorkNet, there are assessment tools in WorkNet also. And Natasha, do you want to kind of mention the ones that are available in there?
Yep, we have each individual, when you go to their account, there's a tab there that has the different assessments listed, and it includes, like the skills and interest inventory, which is the CIS interest profiler, so the 4 skills and interest inventories offered through CIS. Then we have a worksite evaluation, observational evaluation. We also have the NOCTI, and then there's also places where you can add additional assessments that you may offer, or have your customers complete that can be stored with that customer's account as well.
So if you have any questions related to assessments available in WorkNet, please reach out, to Natasha, and then she can kind of show you where they're at and how to access those. What's kind of cool about this tool is it does give you like questions. So it gives you closed questions and open questions. Your closed questions are more fact-finding, where your open questions are more, feelings, opinions. Gives you some examples of some questions related to, open and closed questions when you're looking at working with assessments. So, I recommend you guys to, read through this and use, if you're already doing this stuff, it's great. But if there's techniques that, work for you to incorporate in your programs, then, I think you should, take a look and consider that. One of the that she mentions the observational assessment, and there is a observational assessment tool that you can send to your employers. So like your worksite placements, you can send this assessment to them and they can complete it, and it's populated.
Hey, Tammy, that one's actually the worksite evaluation.
Okay.
Yep. The observation
worksite evaluation.
One that's mainly used with, like, in a training setting where they can use it to let the, training participants know how, what types of evaluation they could expect, on the job. And then the worksite evaluation is whenever they're actually at the work site. And then the employers can complete that.
Mm-hmm. So that is a tool that's available in WorkNet, something that you guys don't have to create, with getting feedback from the employers. So I'm just kind of peruse this, so we can get through the other topics we've got. But, once again, the individual service strategy should not be a one and done. This really should be, a living, breathing document, and it should identify, when goals are achieved. If something needs to be changed, it should, identify those changes. So in your career plan, it's not, like I said, it's not a one and done. It shouldn't be something that I've done this, now I can file it. It's, I've met my obligation for monitoring purposes, I'm done with it. This needs to be a living, breathing document, and that's what is in the WorkNet system and as the career plan, that you need to make sure that you're, following, and you're looking at long-term goals, short-term goals. Those change in many cases as people are going through their programs. So I'm going to kind of buzz on through this, and it talks about, setting goals. This has been a conversation, and this may be an area that if you guys are interested, how to write a good goal. I mean, how do you work with a customer to write goals that make sense, and it's not like I need a job. In this particular case, a long-term goal is becoming a registered nurse. Your short-term goals are the steps to accomplish that, and then you have your activities and services related to doing that. So, writing goals, relevant, good goals is something, that we can definitely talk about if you guys are interested in a session on that. We can look at getting a content expert on goal writing, and bring that to you guys. A labor market, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but once again, you should be training your youth for jobs that are in demand and, in the labor market. And the next topic we're going to talk about addresses this to some degree. But with this current environment, jobs change. And I know kids do not stay in jobs, like my parents did. I mean, there was their one job and done. You had retirements or you had benefits and everything along with that job. Kids move a lot, and their occupations change a lot, and the occupations themselves change. There's a very fluid environment anymore with occupations. So we'll talk about that with the next information I'm going to give you guys. But you need to look at the labor market, and are you addressing the specific needs and concerns, in the labor market and in the future labor market of what these, youth can eventually evolve into, because, they're your customers, and how are you going to prepare them for not just this job, but for the next job afterwards. So implementing the career plan, and we kind of already discussed this. You read through this. This has got some really good information as far as, connecting them to services, identifying what services they need, making sure that, you're including all of this in their living, breathing career plan. And then follow up after appointments. This is, talks about that, and it talks about monitoring services, after they're in it. It has the motivating, engaging, customers listed in this. So there's some information in there that might be beneficial to you guys to look through. And then this chapter 5, and this is where we do have quite a few questions, is follow-up. What's required in follow-up? What is follow-up? So this is a good area for you guys to take a look at. What are the follow-up services? Why do we do it? And then we also talk about support related after placement, what types of services that you can provide for support after placement. So any questions on this? Do you guys feel like this is a beneficial document to you? Yes, no?
Yes.
Good, good. We got a quiet group. Okay, and I have one more thing that I want to show you guys. And let me get to it here. Okay, I don't know how many of you have really have used the Alliance for Excellent Education. This may be something that's very familiar to a lot of you guys. If it's not, it's also another resource that I think is really good with some good content. One of the things that came out just recently is building competencies for careers, preparing students for the 21st jobs. And if you have a chance, this is an hour-long webinar, but it's a really good webinar. It deals with a report that just came out, and the report was produced by Center for Education Policy. And it also has these two gentlemen. This gentleman's from Boeing, and then this gentleman is a retired Air Force general who is, and it's right here, and he's working with the Wings of Eagles Discovery Center. And one of the things that, and then right here is the report. And once again, this is posted in the partner resource area. I strongly recommend you look at this webinar and then look at the report. There's a lot of data elements in this, and I'm going to pull up the report right now. But one of the topics that, I'll show you what the report looks like here. So building competencies for careers, and they link this to the ONET as far as jobs are concerned. But the page that I want to show you guys is a lot of the conversation is, you know, we talk about career pathways, getting them credentials based upon a specific career. A lot of the conversation now is that still. I mean, we still need to do career pathways. We need to get them credentials and skills related to specific careers. But not only do we need to do that, business is also saying they need to have specific competencies, you know, so that they can learn and earn their own careers as we're moving on. So it's just not a matter of them memorizing something, taking a test, passing, and then, you know, going into a job. It's a, you know, matter of mastering different types of things and incorporating those into your program. So it's just not training them for the credential, you're training them for a lifelong learning experiences. So one of the things that they're linking to is these 6 components. So master core academic content, communication efficiency, develop academic mindsets, think critically and solve complex problems, learn how to learn, and work collaboratively. So these are considered what they're talking about deep learning competencies, and then developing programs around competencies that fuel these areas so that we're just not teaching kids how to do a job. We're teaching kids how to learn for future jobs and to be able to work in environments that are constantly going to be changing with this new environment with jobs. And you always hear, you know, we need to train our youth for future jobs. Well, you know, we don't necessarily know what those future jobs and skills are going to be, but if they can master these components, then they should be able to learn those future jobs and skills. So one of the things I want to propose to you guys, like I said, I want you to come next week with some content that you've read or something that you think is beneficial for the group. And whatever you bring, we're going to put on our resource page in WorkNet. So we want to make sure that we're able to share information that you think is relevant of what we're doing and that, you know, could help develop or, you know, change our mindsets on how we're doing services too. And one of the other things I asked you to do before you leave today is type in the chat box some content experts that you would like to see brought into these sessions. So if there's something that you want to do around learn how to learn, you know, is that something that you're interested in? You know, we can reach out and try and find some content experts that specifically deal with learning and how to learn and techniques for that. So I would like for you, we're going to provide this document to you too. There's a lot of techie stuff in it. There's a lot of, you know, numbers and stuff, but there's some really good content. And they also lay out based upon occupations. Like if you want to be an environmental engineer, you have to have 89% of these competencies, of these components over here. For the deeper learning components, you need to be able to master 89% of those to be able to do that. You know, now if you're going to be painting, decorating, 15% is about the competency level that you need in these deeper learning components. So it kind of breaks that out for you based upon the ONET jobs. So is there any questions on that? Like I said, we're going to provide this resource to you too. It's just we want to, you know, look at, especially with these projects, look at some innovative and different things that we may be able to incorporate when we're doing this. We don't want this just to be business as usual necessarily, as like with WIOA, but how can we take our projects and maybe incorporate some different components that either engages the youth to stay in the program or motivates them to, you know, go on to higher education and those types of activities. So does anybody have any questions on that? Let me see what we've got in our chat.
Yeah, hi, Tammy.
Yeah.
This is Paul from Skills. How are you?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, are you going to be sending us both the case management toolkit and this as well, or is this going to be on the INET?
I will be sending you the link to this, and all of the information I presented, I will send you either the document or the link to it.
Great.
But it's also going to be in the career path. It's going to be in the partner resources in WorkNet, so you can access it there anytime, and then it's included in the recording also.
Okay, thank you.
So Paul, do you think this is helpful, this kind of information?
Yeah, I think so. It's, you know, especially, you know, since you know, this is our first grant with Youth Career Pathways. This is all very helpful.
You know, and like I said, we should all, you know, be continuously learning. That's one of the things that I've been, you know, not great at doing in my own job. It seems like you get so bogged down in what you're doing and completing what you're doing that sometimes you don't take just that even 30 minutes to 45 minutes or maybe even an hour just to look at, you know, continuous learning and look at resources or different ways of maybe approaching specific things. In the video, let me get back to that. And if you go to this website, well, I'll send you this website. I'll send you the link to this. But if you go to this video, they talk about High Tech High. And this gentleman here, the major talks about High Tech High, which is in San Diego, and how that school, they have, I believe he said 100% graduation rate, and they all go on. And it's the philosophy of how that school's developed. And it's, you know, like he says, they have one computer for two people. That every youth doesn't have a computer. They share computers because it requires collaboration. You know, they treat them as customers. They don't treat them as students. So there's a lot of different, and you can go to the website and kind of take a look at that too, but there's a lot of, it's just a different philosophy on education of how they work, and it's been a very successful model. So if you look at this video, he talks about that, and he explains, you know, their model and why it's working. But that's the kind of thing is, you know, taking a look at, you know, if maybe if we just kind of tweak this with our model a little bit and incorporate this, maybe our outcomes will be a little bit better. Or maybe, you know, our youth will be a little bit more engaged in the process. And, you know, once again, they're your customers, and they need to own it. I mean, they need to own this, what they're doing. And so that's part of it is how do we make them invested in their own future? So any other, I didn't see a whole lot of comments in there as far as any resources you guys are interested in. So I'd like for you guys to put in, I only have 3 comments in the chat. You will be graded. No. You know, whatever they are. I mean, if you need some help with case noting, what's appropriate in case noting, you know, if you need help, or, you know, whatever content is important, recruitment, perfect, thank you. Here we go. And our job is to try and help you guys and to find resources that will help you in these specific areas. So like I said, I know one of them that we're interested in is getting, and we're working with somebody to talk about doing a dropout prevention. You know, or if you guys are working with, any of you working with foster youth or reentry youth, you know, is there anything that you need related to those that would be beneficial? Let us know, because there's a lot of talented people out there that have a lot of knowledge in different areas, and we just want to try and bring this to you guys. I've got 2. They're both recruitment. What's the rest of you guys? Metro and BCS. I need Erie and public schools in here. And OAI. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, please continue to type in there, because I want to know what you guys need. And then next week, be prepared to come to add resources. So in the chat box, just if it's just one resource, you know, just tell us, you know, this is something that I've read, this is an article, and provide where you can find it too, because we'll be putting these resources in our partner page, you know, for everybody to share. So, you know, come to us with some resources. And then the other thing, and I should have said this earlier on too, because you guys are doing, you know, your own great work. So one of the things I want you guys to be prepared for next week, and I'm changing my screen here, is I want OAI and BCS to be prepared to come next week with say a 10-minute elevator. It could be an elevator speech, but tell us about your project. We talk a lot about numbers, but we want OAI and BCS to come next week and tell us, you know, what are you guys doing? How's it working for you? You know, what has been beneficial? You know, what is a challenge for you? And explain what you're doing, because I don't, you know, as collaboratively as a group, we all know that we're doing youth career pathways, but I don't think that Peoria knows what exactly OAI is training in, or, you know, BCS doesn't necessarily know what Erie's doing. So OAI and BCS, please come next week. It could be a 5 or 10 minute, just, you know, elevator speech of what your program is and what you're training in, you know, what your successes are, how you're working with employers, how you're doing your paid work experience, you know, that type of information. Does anybody have questions on that? And for everybody else, you'll be called on the following week, so make sure that, you know, you're thinking about this. And it doesn't have to be anything long. It's just, you know, like 5 or 10 minutes, so our group can get to know each other and what everybody else is doing. Sound good? Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Next week, we're expecting other people to talk. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Right. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.